The transition to a digitized society is rarely presented as a deliberate strategy. We are told it is the natural evolution of technology, but looking closely at how these systems are deployed reveals a mechanism being primed for a different purpose. This transition is a premeditated architectural strategy known as jurisdictional capture. It is designed by systems engineers to shift societal control from decentralized choice into centralized, inescapable infrastructure. Traditional policy-driven governance relies on inherent rights. The new model replaces this with a logic-dependent framework where every aspect of participation must be constantly verified by the system's rules. In a decentralized society, redundant pathways allow individuals to access essential services through various analog means. To achieve jurisdictional capture, a central choke point is constructed, the digital gateway. Over time, the state decommissions non-digital pathways. All connections are rerouted through that single mandatory bottleneck. We are mapping the exact execution of this capture, the phased deployment, the binary logic that decides who is recognized, and the conversion of human rights into algorithmic permissions. Once the gateway is complete, survival becomes a protocol-level requirement for basic existence. This capture begins with Phase 1, the voluntary phase. During this period, the system relies on tactical obfuscation, masking the construction of a rigid framework behind the appeal of convenience. The state deploys early adopter subsidies to drive mass integration. These efficiency dividends and frictionless services act as strategic bait, encouraging the population to integrate into the digital architecture. While the population integrates, the tactical erosion of choice occurs. The state systematically decommissions redundant non-digital systems, quietly removing any alternative ways to participate in society. As shown in this flowchart, Phase 1 allows for elective inputs, but the moment the digital infrastructure achieves ubiquity, it triggers Phase 2, the total mandate. The system is now enclosed in a rigid bounding box with only one operational input. At this point, the early adopter subsidies are withdrawn. The bait is no longer necessary because building redundant, non-digital systems is now technically impossible. The architecture is total. By the time the population recognizes the loss of autonomy, the architecture is inescapable. This is the trap of ubiquity. Look at this flow model. This central vertical threshold is the hard filter. It is the binary architectural mechanism that determines whether an entity is recognized by the state's logic. The state operates through automated, logic-dependent processing units. These units possess a design feature known as structural blindness, a programmed incapacity to process any data point outside the official digital ledger. When an individual fails to pass the hard filter, they become an administrative ghost. A physical human being is reclassified as a legal non-entity. This is enforced by logical erasure. The burden of proof shifts entirely to the digital ledger. If a human experience or action is not verified by the system's telemetry, the system treats it as though it did not happen. Because non-telemetric actions are invisible to the state's processing units, the subject faces economic exclusion. The system eliminates the gray market, ensuring that if a transaction cannot be seen, you cannot buy, sell, or work. The state's failure to assist unverified individuals represents a programmed ontological erasure from functional reality. For those who prioritize personal autonomy over systemic integration, failing the filter leads directly to the wall. This is a state of calculated deprivation designed to physically deplatform non-compliant entities. The architecture enforces systemic exclusion by revoking the fundamental tools of survival. This begins with the nullification of a driving license to revoke personal mobility, followed by the invalidation of travel credentials to ensure physical containment. The severance of internet access plunges the individual into informational exile. Simultaneously, the lack of digital verification triggers the automated termination of Social Security benefits, ceasing all financial safety nets. This dashboard illustrates the final pillar, an algorithmic refusal of medical care. Biological health is transitioned into a protocol-gated privilege that the system can withhold. The wall ensures that resistance to the system is met with physical erasure from the fundamental tools of civilization. Passing the hard filter does not restore autonomy. Individuals who enter the gateway initiate a state known as conditional sovereignty. Citizenship is reclassified into a high-maintenance surveillance contract. Existence becomes a transactional status. Traditional rights are replaced by active permissions. These are discretionary grants issued and managed in real time by an algorithm, leased to the individual through administrative grace. To maintain these leased permissions, a participant must satisfy a continuous performance audit framework. The mobility metric and the connectivity metric make movement and access to information contingent on strict behavioral compliance. The wellness metric represents the ultimate manifestation of biological enforcement. Here, a compliance score drop triggers a direct reduction in medical access. Medical care is weaponized, transformed from a response to biological need into an algorithmic reward for protocol adherence. Under the leash, citizenship is never owned, it is only continuously leased. This marks the death of the birthright. When a participant inside the architecture fails these performance metrics, they do not hit the wall. They face a different mechanism of control. They enter digital detainment. The system employs throttled functionality to restrict their agency, degrading their access to services rather than deleting them from the ledger entirely. This comparative matrix shows the distinction. The wall results in total erasure. The cage relies on a persistent presence. The individual cannot exit the architecture. The cage is the system's mathematically optimized response. By keeping the node active but constrained, the architecture harvests the subject's economic productivity while neutralizing their political and social agency. This is reinforced by social tiering, creating a visible hierarchy of second-class digital citizens. The pervasive fear of an automated status downgrade compels the broader population to self-moderate their behavior. The architecture's cybernetic goal is the optimization of total population-level compliance. Stepping back, we can see the entire cybernetic architecture as a single, inescapable closed-loop system. The total mandate is governed by one absolute, non-negotiable rule: no ID, no service. This forces every individual into the participant's dilemma. To resist is to face jurisdictional containment and systemic erasure via the wall. To adopt is to accept a transactional existence of leased permissions and high-maintenance surveillance via the leash. To fall foul is to suffer throttled functionality and utility harvesting via the cage. The digital gateway is a dual-purpose architecture, operating simultaneously as an exclusionary wall for the unverified and a regulatory leash for the participant. A ledger now calculates existence as a performance-based metric.